my,
Tab.
yeah,
Put on my tab, sir.
yeah, take it off my check once a week. Well, Mr. Cofer informed me that he's been fairly busy helping out upstairs.
I told him I wanted a complete rundown on that. Total rundown. What I'm saying, he knows what I'm saying too.
Mhm. Be willing to bet that it'd be safe to say that they probably couldn't have done it if he hadn't been offering services.
Well, I have heard through the grapevine that they expect us to continue to budget lines item and send them the money to operate for those two employees.
We have people.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Tracy didn't send me a picture of her meal tonight, so
Well, I got shafted too. Mine will be cold. Better get home.
well, one thing about Zoom meetings is the after meetings are shorter.
Yeah,
I'm like you, I'm kind of tired tonight, but
I'm a little tired.
did you play it today?
Yep.
Good.
Well, I didn't.
You had it planted. Travis, I'm going to try to get on maybe late. I worked the last 3 nights. I slept till 4:30 today, and I'm heading home with both kids. Wife won't be home till after 1 a.m. or something there, so. Or after I am, excuse me, not 1 a.m. after I am. I need to read that correctly. It is 6:31, Mr. Chairman, so.
Do we have a quorum?
You do not. You don't, it's just me and you and the dog named Boo. It's the old 70s song.
Kind of hard to have. My opinion, I don't mean that much. I don't believe that's a live photo of Miss Coffee.
No, it's not a live photo of Miss Cossey. That one pops up periodically. She looks a little different when she pops up live. Hello, Miss Cossey. Okay.
Hello.
Mr. The chairman here, Mr. Fan, did not believe this picture that popped up on you was a live picture of you.
No, it's not a live picture. Y'all don't want to see what I look like.
Okay, I'll leave you alone.
No, I'm joking. I don't care to show y'all my faces. I don't know how that picture come up, but it's like, I think it's my picture from my Google Mail.
I think it is. I believe it is.
Yes. So
Mr. Cooper can probably verify that.
yes.
Okay.
Hope y'all are all
Gotta
doing
go.
well.
Gotta go.
What I'd like to do.
Okay, mute her back there, Mr. Oster there.
What I'd like to start with is this budget estimate 2020 through 2021. Flip over here to the back page. It says it's estimated ending balance and reserve June 30th. If we kept everything just the way we were, and we ran on a 75-cent budget from the commission, the ending balance is $6,954. Is that correct, Mr. Curtis?
Douglas is on with us, and he was let's just unmic Douglas there, Mr. Kofer, and unmic him, and we can talk. Yes, that is correct. As of so, our predictions on everything did come true about that. We would this next year we would be in dire straits, and we also got the letter from the comptroller in regarding our cash flow already that dire straits were coming. And so here we are in the dire straits. Correct, Douglas, on the $6,954 on the bottom line there?
Yes, I have gone through the budget for this year, and I have estimated where I think we will end up. And it looks like, if I've estimated correctly, that we will go into fund balance somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. We have not spent all of the budget, and we've had some significant savings from the pandemic, which is not a good thing, but it's a good thing money-wise. Because we've had some teaching positions that have been open, and they're still open. We haven't hired them. We don't need them yet. And so that has saved us some, and the utilities are down quite a bit, and that's saved us some money. So that's good news. And also, we heard from the State Department that they will not be changing the minimum salary guidelines. So the salaries that I estimated, I aged the teachers up one notch, 1 year, and then I added 2% because that was what the State Department had told us that it might be. But the 2% part is going away. But I have not changed this budget. I'm waiting to hear from you what you want me to do.
So there will be no 2%.
No, 2%. Douglas is correct. That's what our intelligence has given us. Although we won't know if there was any 2% until the May the 29th meeting of the State Board of Education, correct?
Yes, but this came from Mary Ann Dursky, and she said it's all but certain.
So that's gonna
affect that salary line item then, correct, Douglas? And a lot
That'll
of
affect your salary line items, your Social Security, your retirement, and your Medicare.
so we can just add 2% back to it.
So could you add 2% back to it and be pretty close then, Douglas? Or
Not to the whole thing, no.
I'm talking about the salary line item.
You have to take those line items and change them and let the sheet recalculate.
Okay. Well, that's the first step. So task number 1 is to recalculate salaries based upon no increase, correct?
That's what y'all say.
Well, that's what Mary Ann said.
Yes.
Mary Ann Dursky, who am I to argue with the Mary Ann, you know?
Right.
Douglas, can you give us I know you're not for certain yet, but can you give us an estimate on how much money it's gonna save because of the pandemic?
No, I'm just saying we're going to go into fund balance about between $500,000 and $600,000. That's based on pandemic and what we didn't spend.
So instead of being $1 million under budget, we're gonna come in 500,000.
5 or 6 is my estimate.
Be about like what we did last year then.
But if this hadn't occurred, we were definitely gonna be the whole $1 million over, right?
You would have been over 500 and something thousand, yes. But you would have paid more out in salaries and travel and utilities had we gone on normally.
Okay. I wish we had a full panel here.
Mr. Elrod sends his regrets. He is in the middle of a move. So Travis said he would be joining us a little bit later, and I have not heard from Mr. Sanders yet. Let me check one more time. That is all right now. Ask Brian to, okay, that was the other day, I think. It's Mr. Sanders. It says, no, it says ask Brian to let me in. That's some other day. I'm sorry. Sorry. We're watching the room.
Yeah, everybody's in.
Everybody's in, so everybody's in the room. Douglas, any other words of wisdom from your end on on any changes. But the salaries, that's a positive. For the budget, it's not a positive for our people that work.
Right, but
But you
every
put 2%
teacher,
in for non-certified too?
every certified person would get a step up unless they're 20 years and above, regardless. Non-certified, we don't have anything there yet. That's on the table, I guess, but you know, you've got equipment line items that you might reduce. You've got capital outlay that you could reduce. I hate to see you do it, but you could go without buying a bus. Of course, you may get something on a grant to help you buy that bus. That's just an uncertain thing. And also, we have an insurance claim that might be pretty significant, but we are not sure about it yet, about what we might get.
What have you come up with on the director side of it? 'Cause I think you've asked everyone to cut 25%.
I have asked people to cut as much as they possibly could cut on each one of those. Many of them are, can't cut as much as what they would want or what, because of contingencies like special ed and others like that. So yeah, we've asked individuals to come in and to cut what they have can in regard to the program. We want to start line item by line item, Mr. Chairman, or you want to, every equipment line I've proposed to reduce by 25%. If it's not essential or not where you can't touch it, I've left it alone, would leave it alone, and then go back through like career ladder. You can't touch that on the career ladder program on many of these categories, because that's set by the state and put in by the state. I will tell you some positive news. That if we're looking at the 2019-2020, all they did in the April BEP estimate is to, on the total ADMs, they just kept that what we had last year. Okay, I was certainly been in discussions with the commissioner's office and with Marianne Dursky, and what we have been told on that, and she made an announcement the other day during the commissioner's webinar, is that they're going to do months 2, 3, 6, and 6. So what they're going to do is months 2, 3, 6, and 6. And when you look at months 2, 3, 6, and 6, what you're looking at in our estimation, and Ms. Lisa Black has been helping us with that extensively, and looking at our ADMs. Now remember, we're looking at average daily membership, and that's the money that we get from the state of periods 2, 3, 6, and 6. Month 2 ADM was 1933.5491. Month number 3, which is October, September is their second month, October is the third month. You looked at an ADM of 1935.3688. And then month 6, which is January, was 1910.396. That 1910 will be used twice, 1910.366 twice. When you add those up and average by 4, divide by 4, you come up with an ADM of 1922.43. Now these are the state figures, and they jive pretty close. So we'll see what the state comes at. And by the way, you know when the next budget estimate, the May estimate will be here? Conveniently on May the 15th, when our budget is due to the commission. So lovely us. You're looking at an increase from 1922 from right now that what we had before is a definite increase, because what we had before was 1872. And you go 1922, 50 students, that would be remarkable or very helpful in our ADMs. So when the ADMs come in, I'm very anxious to see those. Lisa, you want to say anything else about the calculations of the ADM? Mr. Coper, could you, or she is unmuted.
I'm sorry. I mean, I think that that's pretty close to what the state has, and those numbers look pretty good. If we figure right, that's Skyward versus the state, and we were pretty comparable to what the state had. So I believe we're going to go up, but I think those numbers are good.
Previous year's numbers, because that's what I thought they were going to do.
Well, they were going to use the previous year's numbers, and then they started calculating at the state and said, nope, we're going to use 2, 3, 6, and 6.
That's about 350,000.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. It's good. If that's how it turns out, that'll be great.
If we could figure that and then figure in,
That's what I'm trying to do now, is how many of those students are out-of-county students.
because we figure we will be asked that from across the street.
Right.
But that's a hard job too, because you have to check the address on every one of them.
Everybody, and some are teachers' kids, and it's a neat little job.
Well, that's by policy, and
Right, so that doesn't, right,
nobody else can change that, because that's by board policy that they can.
right. So
when
I
they-
try not to look at those. I take those out when I do it.
Well, like I say, that's board policy.
Right.
Board policy has said that they can do that. But that is hard to do when you're trying to figure out.
Exactly how many.
Principals will tell you that, you know, they will tell you that's a hard task. So she's
I'm
at a
trying.
hard task, because some would say that, you know, we're 50 over out of county students. Well, we're not. I think there's been discussion about that around this table before. Correct, Mr. Daniel?
They bring dollars to the table.
Yes, sir, they do. So if that's the case, we'll be up 350,000, you know, 350,000 more. That would be great, because there are some counties, ladies and gentlemen, that are getting less funding. Because their rates have gone, you know, their numbers have gone down, and they're asking the state for more help, and you know, their local funding body for more help too. So that muddies the water a little bit more, but we know that's going to be pretty well certain. But in a budget they want us to send over on May 15, that's, you know, not going to, you know.
I need, after he does the changes on the 75 cent, I need a 68.5% budget too.
All right, Douglas, a task for you to reconfigure this particular one that we did under 68.5.
Okay,
Here's what, and you know, this is what I was approached by the county executive when we were discussing something else, and he asked me about it, and I said, well, we're going to put a 75 cent. And he said, well, that's 7 cents more than you had. What are you going to do with it? And I said, well, we're going to keep from reducing staff. And then, of course, he asked the proverbial question, as we've been asked before. I've been told you're 40 over, and that keeps coming up across the street, that we're that many over. And, you know, it's the size of our system and it is the configuration of our system. And we talked to the commission about that, but
It's not so much the size, it's just
the configuration, yeah, the size is actually, how many you got? Yeah, we got, you know, 1922, but those 1922 are spread out over 7 schools. And the commission knows that. We've discussed that with them, you know, really in depth on 2 different occasions, correct, Mr. Chairman? And,
said it a
but
lot.
they keep, you know, they keep telling us we'd be, you know, you're 40 teachers over, and according to some of those others, a few of those that I've heard, they said that we'd cut every one of them. So hate to brighten the new, you know, brighten the day with such gloominess, but you know, when you're only looking at numbers, and instead of looking at kids, then that's where you find the discrepancy. And we like to look at kids and what kids are getting and the quality of instruction they're getting. And, you know, others want to look at numbers, and that's where you are. We're living in a numbers world. There's a number on the news broadcast every day of how many more cases and how many more deaths. We live in a numbers society. So, you know, these are the raw numbers that we're looking at, and you know, they're into subtraction, and we're going to have to be into subtraction here. It's easy to make additions, but when it comes to subtracting, the hardest decisions that you ever have to make, whether it's personally or professionally. But we need to look at this in a professional manner. So are there, you know, things that we got to do? Yeah. Because the key to all of this, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, but maybe I am, is we've committed the unpardonable sin in fiscal management. And that is, we've been utilizing non-recurring money for recurring expenses. And so that is, to me, the unpardonable sin of the finance, that you cannot continue to do so. If you do so, it will catch up to you. And I'm afraid it has caught up with us with that $6,954 bottom line.
We've got to keep a minimum of 600 and what? It's at least 650, isn't it?
It'll be 3% of your budget that has to correct, Douglas. You check into that.
I think that's right.
6% of your total budget that you have to make sure that you maintain. Dr. Belton's taught school finances. Dr. Belton, isn't that correct? 6%? Or am I a little rusty on that? Hello, Dr. Belton, go ahead.
I was trying to unmute myself. It's been a while. I can get my notes out. My book's right behind us, but every state is different, and I teach it from a very general level. But generally speaking, I think that's what they like for you to have on hand.
Yep, and you have to meet the budget test. Douglas will talk to you about that.
But that's the bare minimum amount, right?
Bottom dollar. Correct, Douglas?
3%.
But the problem is, you don't want to just have just that 3%, because surely as you got a major expense that comes that you have to draw into, and then you talk about another cash flow problem. That's what you would end up with. Is, you know, we would have the comptroller on us again in regarding cash flow. So
Is there any way possible? And I don't see it, but is there any way possible that we can keep our one teacher per class with 68.5 cents?
you'd have to make major cuts in other places for that to occur. Douglas, what do you think on that? With a 68.5 budget, would we be able to maintain the current teachers that we have now?
Depends on what other cuts you make.
That's my recommendation, that we try to do that. And guys, y'all are a lot more familiar with this budget than I am, but
Well, the current staff that we have a few positions that are posted that aren't currently being paid.
I understand.
Certainly, you know, there's about, what, 3 positions, I think 4 positions that are being posted right now that we need, but are, you know, they're still out there. So, you know, we could say there's a, you know, hiring freeze, meaning, you know, and that if someone leaves, you might even not even bring that replacement back if it's not, you know, necessary. But I'm like you, Javen. I mean, when you look at what's best for kids, I think what's best for kids is every teacher, you know, having that class. They worked really hard over the last, you know, 20 years to stop the splits. I don't know when the last year a split was deemed illegal. Marcia might could tell us on that. But that was probably the late 90s, mid 90s.
How would it work if we had,
It was probably 90, it was part of the BEP funding when it got fully funded. So you can still have multi-age classrooms. You just can't, what's the old time, split them, have half of them go into the one classroom and half go into another classroom, or whatever portion that is.
Yeah, what would have been 3 teachers, you just had 2. I taught a number of years that way. And I wouldn't want to go back to that, but you can have multi-age classrooms. An example, at one school, at school A, if you've got 14 students and you've got 8 students in another classroom, yeah, well, you know, that's 22 students, and 4th and 5th, you can have up to, how many, Marcia, on 4th and 5th? I should have put that down on my cheat sheet on there. You can have,
Lisa may have to get in here too. It changes, right? 3rd grade is, you can't have your average over 25.
Right.
Single classes have to be 20, and then it goes to
30.
well,
and
but
then
27.
Yeah, average is 27, 30, and then 35, right?
5, and with an average of 32 or 33.
Yeah.
I'll look that up while y'all are talking.
yeah, 32. I've got that. Miss Mullins sent a report out the other day that had that on there. I meant to make, you know, take a picture of that. It's a good little chart on there that Miss Mullins had in that thing that we turn into the state. So I did send out an email to, let's see, Kathy, are you on? You'll unmute for me, please, Miss Mullins.
Yes, I'm on. Yes, sir.
You know that paper that we signed the other
Methodology
day?
report.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh-huh.
Send that a copy to Dr. Melton and also to Chairman Pham.
Okay, yes, sir, I will.
All right, thank you. So that will get you that particular figure. But if you're looking at that, that'd be 22. And so yeah, you could have that class, those 2 classes combined.
Has anyone heard any more about the pandemic funding we're supposed to get? I had a call from the comptroller's office making sure I knew where to put it. So that must mean some is coming to GP. I would think the bulk would go to federal, and I'm sure there are strings attached to it, but that could possibly help us, but we don't know anything about it, or I don't.
Well, you're in the same boat, Douglas. None of us do hardly either. We know it's coming. And we think approximately $371,000 is going to come from the state, from the feds. And we do know that there are going to be some strings tied, maybe not as much as we normally have tied to it, but they are going to be strings of ties, like you can't, you know, you can supplement, not supplant. That will be, and I'm hearing a lot from different directors what they're planning on doing with it once it comes to their county. I'm acting like it's not there, because if we have to use it now the county is going to receive some with, I don't think, the strings being attached. And if the county gets that in, I've asked, and the chairman have asked to replace a bus. We need $30,000 to get from an insurance settlement on a bus that was wrecked. That was
We've got
total. And we
$67,000.
wanted to bring that up. We wanted to bring that up to, you know, to buy a new bus at 90,000, and then you got another bus that's you're going to be required in 21 to buy. That's another 90,000. So for 120,000, I'm asking the commission for 120,000 of that, so we don't have to use the 90,000 or the other 30,000. I'm sorry, Douglas, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's just what we've asked, but now the county is going to get somewhere around 600 and some odd $1,000. If we could get 120 of that, would be really good, but we're not the only ones with our hands out wanting a part of that. Everybody else in the county wants part of it. So Douglas, that's all I've heard on that. Have you heard anything different?
I've heard nothing.
Doug Combs, can I ask Mr. Combs a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Doug, if you'll unmic, or Mr. Cofer, if you'll help us help him unmic. Doug, did the county commission at their meeting the other night say anything about the stimulus funds?
They did not, other than just to say that they were looking into it. I know that tomorrow's budget meeting primarily, or originally, they were going to discuss those funds to see what opportunities might be available. But then after the commission meeting last week, the consensus was that the budget committee needed to relook at the budget. They thought the budget was too healthy and they needed to reduce some things. But I do know that at a budget meeting, it was voiced that your concerns for a bus, and it was spoken of favorably.
I
That
wonder if
50
you can't
cents
just
will get you a cup of
30,000 or the 90,000, Doug.
I don't remember hearing an exact number other than we could help the school system get a bus.
Okay,
So.
I'd like two. Instead of one, I'd like two, but I may just
Okay.
get what we can get, but still that would help us out 30,000. 30,000 is 30,000, you know? All right, thank you, Douglas, or Doug. Anything else for Mr. Combs, Mr. Chairman? All right, Bruce, what do you think on this? You there, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to make a comment about that or not, so.
Well, help me here, Douglas. This year, a penny equals 25,680. Is that right?
Yes, whatever's on that sheet.
Okay. All right. And then that'd be 1,926,000. And then if I take that same 68.5 cents, multiply that times that 25,680, that'd get me up to 1,759,000. So I take that from our, do it backwards, either way you want to do it. $166,920 is what the difference is on this. From what we're asking, looking at, and what they're proposing to give. Am I saying it right?
I think that's probably correct, or at least, is your math the same as mine, Doug?
I can see what he's done there, but that's still gonna leave us. Even if they give us this 85 cents and we don't make any cuts. It's a sad number.
Oh, yeah.
Do what?
I said, even if they give us the 75 cents and we don't make any cuts, we're still looking at the $6,954 estimated ending balance in reserve.
Well, we're just going between 500 and 600 in this year.
Yeah, but that's because of the COVID. If the COVID hadn't occurred, we'd have been in a dire straits.
we went in 555,000 last year. Is that right? If I'm looking at my actual for 2018, 2019, $555,959.
Right, and
That's
we
an
went into that this year, but because of the COVID, we've saved about, what did you say, Douglas, about $1 million somewhere in there, and that a little over?
Well, I didn't divide it. I didn't specify which. I just went through and made an estimate. And I think you're going to go into fund balance between $500,000 and $600,000 for whatever reason.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking. But of course, next year, if that BEP comes up, that can help us some. The pandemic stimulus money, I don't know when that's coming, where it's going. I don't know what to even think about that. I wish they'd give us a little guidance.
Ms. Mullins, would you unmute and let's talk about that just for a second? Ms. Mullins?
Yes, sir.
We do know that we'll have to fill out an application in the month of June, correct?
Correct. We will, end of May, 1st of June, we will have to fill out an application, and we should know something by June 30th is their estimated date. So I could not imagine, I mean, it should, I would assume, be an automatic approval, but it's just them approving what we are proposing to use the funds for. So there will be stipulations to that. But at this time, I do not know what the stipulations are.
I have been told that those stipulations are going to be fairly light.
Mm-hmm.
That they could be utilized for food service, about helping them. It could be utilized on multiple other, other projects, other things. Just they're going to be pretty lenient with it, where they're usually pretty strict with it. At
So
least
you're
that's what I
thinking
get
it
from
won't,
the commissioners.
you're thinking it won't come until probably July then, so that would be something for next year's budget.
Yes, sir.
Correct. I think it can be retroactive until like March the 13th or the middle of March, when the pandemic originally hit. So we can retroactive some things, but as far as us actually receiving the funding, I do not believe it'll be until, like you said, till the next fiscal year, this upcoming fiscal year.
They don't give you a number.
Well, we have a number, about, what was it, about $371,000 based on Title II, or Title 1, excuse me, Title 1.
Correct. We should get about 90% of what we normally would get each year on Title I funding.
And that's where we got messed up, because we were a percentage point, or
Well, that was in a different title, but yes.
Okay. It comes back to census. Please fill out your census if you've not filled it out. I could call out somebody right now, but I'm not. Fill out your census. But that don't help us right now either, does it? But it does give us indication that things could change, and we have to prove there have been some things said that and this is the battle between the two bodies. We understand that. We understand the rub. But, when they say that we've got a slush fund over here, I'd like to find where the slush is at. I'd make me a slushy with it. I did get a smile or two. I didn't get a laugh, Mr. Chairman. So at least you have to, I'm trying to make an effort here.
We have to give them a budget by the 15th. As of course, this thing is still unfolding. I mean, what we don't know is still unfolding. And, but I think it has to be something with a whole lot more reasonable fund balance number than what we've got now.
What would we have to get to keep everything the way it is? 85 cents wouldn't even cover it, would it?
We me and Douglas flew with that a little bit. That pie in the sky budget, it was like $1.25, $1.25 or something.
To keep everything the way it is.
To pretty well keep everything the way it was, would be
$1.24.
I think $1.24 or something. remember Douglas, when we did our pie in the sky budget just for fun?
That was last year, wasn't
Yeah, it was last year.
That
And,
was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was last year. We did the pie in the sky. We were just taking his spreadsheet there, and I said, let's increase that until it comes down to 0. And it was like $1.25 or something.
So just out of curiosity, did I hear you say that the 2%, we figured a 2% increase for teachers, and that's not going to be the case?
Correct. Just the steps up, according to.
Okay, so what about our certified? Wasn't there a 2% increase on the certified?
The
Well, that's what it is.
Department told
Certified.
us- The State Department told us to figure last year's minimum salary guidelines and add 2%. That
For
was
the
what they first
non-certified?
told us, and that's what I used to calculate this budget. Since then, I've heard from Mary Ann Dursky that the 2% won't be in there. So the minimum salary guidelines should be the same, is what she said. Of
Okay,
course,
so
we
what
have-
about the non-certified?
We have to
You
give.
did that the other night. Wasn't that a 2% increase for them as well?
Well, we don't have that in there. I mean, whatever y'all want to do.
I thought I heard the other night that you would put a 2% increase on that non-certified as well.
I don't see.
I thought that we had, Douglas, on the,
Maybe we have. Let's see.
I think that we had on the non-certified. Give us a line item, Miss Audrey, on
Yeah,
your.
you're right. We did. We did. We did.
Okay, we did. Okay. So if you take that away,
Yeah, we can do that.
and we had done percentage increases on our hourly people, is that what we did last year? We did a percentage?
All non-certified got a percentage.
Okay. Instead of hourly increases, we went with a percentage last year, correct? What was it, Douglas, what was that percentage we used last year? Do you remember for non-certified?
I'm thinking 2%, but I'm not sure.
It was 2, Mr. Curtis. This is Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. I figured some of our other supervisors would know that exactly. So, 2%. And if we eliminated the 2% for non-certified, which I'm not saying that's my recommendation as of this moment, because they deserve every penny they get. I think everybody would agree around the table on this.
That's only a few of them.
Well, we've got 3. You got 2 of us, and maybe Travis is going to this in a little while. But I'm just, that's what I'm saying though, is if it comes to just the brass tacks of that having a job or having a 2% increase, I think you would look at not doing the 2% increases.
That's only custodials and those people.
Yeah, food service, custodial,
All non-certified.
educational assistants, special education assistants, and guys, those people don't make near enough. I'll just put it that way. I'd hate to cut that, but in the world of whether you're determining whether to cut that or to lose teachers, that's like I heard the commission say one time. They were sitting there arguing over a fire truck or an ambulance. I said, that's in pretty bad shape when we're arguing over a fire truck or an ambulance. Which one's more important? And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying here. But if you have to choose, you have to choose. So Douglas, you can go back.
How much that 2%? How much that 2% be over all the non-certified?
I didn't hear Bruce's question.
How much will the 2% be over on the non-certified?
What about it?
How much?
How much?
Yeah, it depends on the category. I mean, they're
You have
spread
to
out.
look on the line items and see.
I can tell you, I can look up what I paid last year to do 2%, if that would help.
That would.
That's
Well, but that doesn't have anything to do with this budget.
That's correct.
Well,
but But they had to borrow 35,000 from us though, over on that deal. From that was that last year, Jennifer, or the year before?
Last year.
Okay.
So what do we need to do, Douglas? Take that line item and subtract 2% from it?
No, it won't come out just exactly that way. I'll have to recalculate it.
Yeah, Douglas is right. Mine wouldn't be a knock in what that 2% would be for GP. I have way less employees, so.
But maybe we won't have to give you 35,000 to keep your head above the water though.
No, I hope not.
Especially with this money that we're getting from the feds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jennifer, you might want to use this time to tell the board or who's here what you're kind of thinking about for the summer.
We're going to do summer feeding. We're going to do one side at Woodbury Grammar. And my plan is to approach the principals this week of still doing 5 days worth of meals on a Monday. I may change the time to be a little later just to help my ladies out, because 9 o'clock is hard for them to get that done. And we'll do the non-congregate feeding, which means we can do multiple days meals and just do the where we hand the meals to the parents in a drive-up capacity for the month of June. The USDA has given us that waiver, so we're going to take advantage of it.
Okay. So you figured that we're gonna come out that the salaries are going to stay the same, and nobody's going to like that. But guess what? I'd rather have it, like I say, guaranteed salary as a raise and have to cut somebody. That's going to help. And then if you don't do the 2% on the non-certified, that's going to help. And we still don't know about this insurance settlement. That's going to help. We got a lot of help coming that.
Are you figuring the 2% what it's going to cost, Douglas?
Douglas, I mean, he's going to go back and figure that, Bruce, of how much that's going to cost. Correct, Douglas?
Sir?
You're going to go back and you're going to figure on your 2% and come back to the board how much that's going to cost.
Right. That'll affect your benefits, your Social Security, and all of that. But when you change the salary number, it'll change all of that too.
So we're still looking at 800,000. Pretty close. 6 to 8 transportation.
No, transportation's $800 and some odd thousand, sir.
We could keep every teacher and just not run the buses if we did that.
What about equipment line items?
Equipment line items, we can go back. Douglas, would you suggest a 25% decrease in equipment line items?
Well, you can do that on some things. I don't know that you can on everything. Well, we can do that.
You could gain about 50,000 if you've reduced capital outlay by 50.
You can reduce your
That's an
capital
item
outlay. Textbooks, I understand next year we may not get hit as hard, but if you take that out and then the next year you're hit as hard again, it's hard to get it back in your budget.
Well, Douglas, I haven't got to talk to you. One thing that I didn't calculate in is that while we're not doing a textbook adoption per se, and of course LEA this year, and we may need some from next year too, just to buy. This will be the most expensive adoption we've ever done, of course, in a year that's lean, but also the end of next year ends our 6-year cycle with our math textbooks, because they've extended math now adoption out 2 more years. Well, at first that looks like, well, yay, we don't have to buy any math textbooks, but we pre-purchase everything up front. So I bought for the 6-year cycle. Douglas helped me with that, and we got all the orders for a 6-year cycle. So that 6-year cycle is up at the end of next year. So I'm going to, we can keep the same books we've got, but 6 through 12 grades 6 through 12 are consumable books. I paid for those up front. I'll have to purchase them again for 2 years, plus then our adoption for our K-5 consumable text too. The good news is I don't have to buy, you know, all the teachers editions and things like that, because we will have them. But any of the online resources that went along with it, once our adoption is up. Now what the State Department is trying to do is they negotiate those contracts with the publishers for a 6-year cycle, so that if I need replacements during that 6 years, they can't go up on the price. So the State Department is trying to negotiate the price so that we can at least purchase them, the ones that we have to replace every year, for what we paid up front for them or close to it. But it won't be near as expensive as in full year. But I will tell you the ELA that we're doing this year will be as much as 2 years combined, and the publishers are letting us pay for them over 2 years too, if we need to. So Stacy and we're actually going to come in tomorrow. I didn't know if Douglas was going to be there or not, and start working on part of them, and as soon as we can, and go ahead and get those purchased. And if it looks like we need to spread it out over 2 years, we can do that. But then just remember, we've got to buy some math books next year. So sorry about that, Douglas.
That's all right. We can talk about it tomorrow. I think I've got something figured out for you, maybe.
I don't have anything else to add, guys. We've got to try to vote on something tomorrow night. I mean, I don't care at all to try to send them the 75 cent. I think it'll be denied. I think if we're lucky, we'll get 68.5. I just want to try to keep every classroom teacher that I possibly can. I don't know that we can do that, but that's what I want to do. I don't have the rest of the board here. Bruce is the only one here.
I'm good with 75.
We'll hear from principals and technology, see if what they want to. Mr. Kofer did want to talk about his technology budget just a little bit.
Sure.
All right, we'll go around the room, some of the supervisors and principals here in just a minute too, to get y'all's indication on the budget. So Mr. Kofer, I'll start with you on technology.
I actually have a presentation on the technology budget, but I'd sort of like to give it to more than 2 board members. That'd be something we could possibly do tomorrow or at a later date.
Well, you know, we're going to send them a 75, and you've not got any cuts in that 75 in that budget in that 75.
Okay, so got a little time.
So you've got a little time to when they come back and say the budget committee looks at it, and probably a week and a half, something like that. I'd say they want something by June 1.
Still going to have major cuts.
You're still going to have major cuts. That gives us time to go back through and look at what the board wants to.
If they approve, and they won't. I don't think. I mean,
They send a message back. We didn't know till, what was it, Douglas? August the 27th when they adopted. They was going down, taking it down to 62.5 there for a few minutes, and I have had, you know, some commissioners have told me they're not going to take it down like that because, you know, the county's going to be into it because of, I think, sales tax is going to be down. And they keep bringing that upside of our head about that, hey, sales tax is up, and hey, you're doing great, you know. And now I don't think that argument's going to fly. But there again, you know, there are people that are better numbers people than I am. At least they claim to be.
All right, anybody else?
Principals, let's go around about cuts in from teachers. Let's talk about that for a minute or two, if you don't mind. Unmic our principals, and we'll take it one at a time. Let me start with my top principal up at the top, Mr. Dean, the Dean of Short Mountain.
Hey.
All right, Dean.
Well, I certainly hate to see teacher positions cut. You start combining classes, that's not good for the kids, of course. And with this new virus out there also, trying to keep them separated as much as possible, it'd be a problem. So I just think from the educational standpoint, we need to keep those classes as they are.
I agree with that.
And Ms. Fitz brings up something. Thank you for bringing that up, Dean, is that we don't know what the state's going to require us to come back. If we don't come back on August the 5th, like we're scheduled to come back, is the first day of in-service. And if we come back separately or differently or what, what's that going to look like? And, we don't know. So there's some unknowns there too. And this is an incredible thing to try to talk about unknown, put a number on an unknown, but that's what we are tasked with here. They said before, by state law, we have to send them something by May the 15th. Well, we'll send them something. Like we said last year, but then all that is a stopgap until you can turn right. And then on August the 27th, do another. I don't think it'll be like that. I think they want to show the comptroller that they can do budgeting and get a budget submitted way before that. So that's what I'm thinking. I've not talked to the budget committee. I'm going to have the financial management committee meeting as the chair. I'm going to call one of them, probably it looks like for May the 20th. And we'll see what the committee desires to do then. With the financial management side of it. Okay, I'm going to go back down through the list of principals and supervisors. I'll come to you in just a second. Mr. Nichols, high school. And Auburn. Go ahead, Auburn. You're.
Well, Mr. Curtis, I'm getting ready to. I've got to run up to the drive-in to make sure our video is going to work for tonight, or for Thursday night. So
all right.
I'm going to be here for just a second. We've started some great programs, and I know that you're getting a lot of. We're in some dire straits on some things, but some of the last programs we started have been very beneficial to these kids, and I'm just going to mention one, the CNA class, that has been great for our community. And, I'm having to look at those things hardly. If we have to make cuts, I'm going to have to seriously look at, and I'm just being honest with you. That's probably going to be one of the ones I'm going to look at cutting. And that's, I understand we're in dire straits, and I understand that budgets are tight. And I want to do everything we can to benefit these kids. But I just don't. I would hope that we can find other ways to keep from cutting teachers, if at all possible.
Okay.
I want to benefit these kids as much as possible.
I've got a question. That CNA, that's the one where the kids was waiting to get in, had the wait list.
Yes, sir, there is. You're correct on that, and that was one of the last ones that we did. And we've had a lot of success out of that program, and a lot of kids have already benefited from that they've already gotten jobs as soon as they graduated. And please don't take that negatively, but I know we've all got to look at this seriously. But I've got to, I'm trying to do my best also on trying to look at what's going to benefit my school the most.
Okay, Melinda's there with you, so we'll stay with you there, Courtney, before you unmute. So, hey, that moved it right around toward that window again. All right.
Sorry. Okay, is that better? Okay.
Yes, Melinda, go right ahead.
And tell me the question again. What am I cutting?
Well, basically, we're looking at, cutting teacher or cutting other things other than cutting teachers themselves. And you have a smaller school there, and, I could tell you, hey, I need you to combine, 2 or 3 classes, and I think just you want to talk about how that would adversely affect your school.
Well, I mean, of course, it's going to adversely affect it, and I know that may be where we're at. I think, especially the 3 smaller schools, we're pretty much as cut as we can get. I mean, we have 1 teacher per classroom for each grade. I mean, I would hate to combine, but I don't know what it's going to look like. Also, though, like what Mr. Pitt said, if we go back and we have all these rules where kids have to be 6 feet apart, I don't know how that's going to look, how that's going to work if you've combined classrooms. It's going to be hard to do that anyway, the way we are now.
Right. Much less if you get any, if they do, but we don't know the guidelines yet on any of that. We don't, that's a shot in the dark one. I mean, that we don't have any
Right.
on that. We're going to have some contingencies, and Mr. Chairman and Bruce, we'll talk about these contingencies at our district leadership meetings and look at what, we'll try to find ways to start no matter what the situation is.
Right.
Just like we've adapted to this situation, no matter what, we'll do the same thing with the fall, but we'll have some contingencies about, plan A is a regular start, plan B is whatever, and plan C, and probably time we finish up, plan Z, if it's any indication of how this year's been.
Right.
So I'm like you, Marlon. I mean, it's going to adversely affect you, but we know that. We know that. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me go down to Ms. Cossey, Woodland's perspective here.
All right. So same as everyone else, I hate for us to lose teachers when in our community, it seems that we're growing and we may need those teachers if if you're looking at making our class sizes bigger, and then perhaps in August or whenever we start back, if we do grow and then we need those teachers and they are, I think it's important that we do keep what we have, if at all possible.
Okay. Any additional comments about what's Woodland's, is in just regarding Woodland?
Well, also, if we're looking at some of the things that have been brought up regarding like the social distancing, we're gonna have the need for all the teachers that we have. So really just trying to keep the ones that we do have in place. And for us, it's 2 per grade level except for 1. So I think that's really what's best.
How many houses have been put up recently in Woodland community?
Angela, can you tell the chairman about how many houses you think have been put up?
Currently, we have over 10 being built within a mile from our school. Over 10 homes.
They're paying per square foot, by the way, $1 per square foot. That's going on educational debt service. Yes, thank you. Just thought I'd throw that in, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Maybe that'll help us a little bit budget-wise.
Well, it goes on debt service. It don't even come to us. It goes into debt service. And going into debt service helps debt service, but it don't help us when you're growing, that many, let's say you got, of those 10 houses, let's say that, I'll just be generous there. 5 of them had 4 kids. That's 20 kids.
And I mean, and some of the grade levels that I know that have been looked at as far as maybe putting together and having just 1 teacher, I mean, we're within 1 to 2 students of that happen. So, really and truly, that could happen very easily, that we grow and need both of those, and so that we're not over the minimum amount of students.
And there's no doubt Woodland's growing faster
maximum amount of students
in any other district in the county. Any other school district or individual school zone, let me put it that way, zone, Woodland is growing larger than any of the rest of them right now. Because land perks out Angela's way. That's the deal.
Lots of flat ground.
Yeah, and it'll perk. That's the reason you got all the growth that way. All right, thank you. And let's go to Ms. Hancock. Emily, go ahead. And Emily, Mr. Kofer's got something. We're looking at a statistic that we found out today in regard to Woodbury Grammar.
Okay.
Mr. Cofer, you want to talk about that statistic in regard to Woodbury Grammar? We looked at connectivity of students' connectivity throughout the district, and Mr. Cofer was quoting a statistic in regard to the county. So Brian, tell a little bit of what we talked about.
Well, Emily could probably talk about that more than me because that's where the numbers came from that she compiled with her survey, but it came out to about 1/3 of the students at the grammar school have internet access at home. And that's quite a bit less than the rest of the school system. The high school's about 90%, and several of the other K-8 schools are even close to that, in the upper 80s to 90.
But Woodbury Grammar comes down, and what was the stat on that, Emily?
Well, he's quoting more of the stats than I saw exactly, but what our deal is with that, we feel like a lot of our kids have phones that just have data. And so when you're trying to run the computer programs and things like that we're doing, they're just running off data. So technically they don't have anything that has internet, is what I hear. That's how I hear that. So as far as the budget goes and all that stuff, of course, I want to keep everybody that I have and all that. My major concern is my assistant principal. And as far as how we can function, I'm just going to be very honest. It's super hard, and I don't think I could do it because we just got that position this year. As far as a full-time, I was there half-time last year, and that has made a tremendous difference in our school and just how we do. So that would be my huge, I would like to definitely keep that person, our position.
And Woodbury Grammar is making strides and continues to make strides, but and I think every principal will be on notice here that if anybody needs an assistant principal, it's Emily, because of the difference in the clientele, certainly, but or in the different types of students. But she's got the largest special education population in any school in the county, and special needs plus behavioral. And Ms. Audrey could probably talk a whole lot more about that, but there's just a whole lot more upkeep that they have at Woodbury Grammar than any other school.
That assistant principal has really helped. He's been very instrumental in helping our program to be as successful as it has been. We've had a lot of improvements over the past couple of years there with our SPED population and behaviors, and sometimes just that male presence, believe it or not, has made a world of difference in some students.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Emily, anything else? Thank y'all. Anything else, Emily?
No, I mean, I'm happy to answer questions if you have any, but
that shows your socioeconomic statuses too, in regard to even the census data shows from Woodbury North that the census response has not been as much. I don't know how it was today. Census folks were at the meal distribution today. I haven't heard any reports on that today, but
he didn't have as many today as he did last week. But last week they were happy he was there. They were willing to do it and everything last week. So we had a good success last week with it.
Mr. Curtis, did you see Auburn's numbers are up in the census answers?
no, I did not hear that. That's good news because you were at the bottom. So go ahead there, Melinda.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was Brian L. Parker sent it out or posted it somewhere, but I saw it. We were. I almost want to say we're in the lead. Let me see if I can find that.
That would be remarkable if it was going from the least to response to the most responding. That would be excellent. But we were up big time last week, and I think, David Faulkner said that we thought it was because of our efforts that we had put into it and to help the education side. So I sent the same message I sent out last week, except changed the date this morning. So I sent out that one and the one about the free masks. So I've not heard about the mask today. We'll talk about that at the DLM on Wednesday. For the non folks who don't know my acronyms, that's District Leadership Meeting.
my information is according to Facebook, so you know it's.
Oh,
right.
really? It's accurate. Yes, it's very accurate. too, yeah.
Oh, that it's 100% right. But Brian L. Parker, who is a very reliable source, posted, and Auburn Town is ranked 167th, and Woodbury's ranked 176. We're at 55.6%, and Woodbury's at 54.8.
That's good.
As of May the 8th, I'm telling you, we're working.
Okay, Auburn Town's on the move.
Right.
You get the mayor involved over there. You know, if Travis was here, I'd tell him that. Get the mayor and go house to house. Y'all could have that done in what, 30 minutes? I was kidding though, that Belinda. Don't crucify me. I was kidding.
What did you say? I'm sorry, did I miss something?
I said you need to get the mayor to get off his hunchers and go out and help the census. I said y'all can have the whole town covered in 15 minutes.
That's
30,
okay.
30. I'm sorry, 30.
30. Okay, we'll get right on that, sir.
A little bit of levity in a bad situation there, you know. All right, that's all of our principals, I do believe. Have I missed anybody? If I did, unmute. All right, supervisors, let's go around and talk about cuts within the supervisory rank. We've got these slush funds, you know, supervisors that we've got over here that, you know, we can, windfalls is what one the commissioner utilized. Douglas Combs may talk about that, but they call them windfalls. We got a lot of windfalls over here. And yes, right, I'd like to find the fall. I think we can find the falls, just ain't found the wind. But go ahead, let's go around the supervisors. Audrey, I'll start with you since you're, Mr. Kofer, you want, we've already talked, correct? Are you good, Mr. Kofer?
Yeah, I'm gonna hold my thunder for now.
Okay, hold the thunder till later. All right, Audrey.
Well, with special ed, we have to meet the maintenance of effort. So basically that's what we do. What we run into is, you know, although teachers are not getting an increase in pay as far as a percentage of raise, they are being moved up a step. So that's an increase that's got to come from somewhere. So when we increase something, then we got to lose something if we don't increase the funds.
All right, so you're just going to get the step raises is all it's going to get this time in this proposed budget, Audrey. So
right, but see, there's no extra money in the maintenance of effort to cover that. So when you see what I'm saying, if we've only got a set amount of money and it's spent every year, but yet we increase each year, we have to lose something every year in order to increase that amount.
Douglas, you want to speak on that for a second? Peter pay Paul. We've been there before in the whole district like that, Audrey. So we understand.
She just described our situation to the team.
Yeah, that described it. We have to, you know, everything keeps increasing. They give us less amount of money. There you go. Douglas, you want to speak on special ed for a minute on what we can and can't do there?
Well, you have to meet maintenance of effort. There's no question about that. And so it's like Audrey says, each year when you're putting more in the salary component, then you're losing contracted service funding or staff development funding. You know, it has to come from somewhere if you keep doing the same thing. And I'll also talk about pre-K. You know, no need to cut pre-K because you're going to spend the whole grant anyway. And you've never put any money in pre-K. Now, the after-school program is another matter. That seems to be something nobody really wants to talk about, but that would be a place you could cut, and you might want to save that for later.
Well, we picked that up from the county and received no compensation from them whatsoever to pick that up. And I know some of it's covered, but there's still some added expense. You want to take a stab at how much there is there, Douglas or Lisa?
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa, on mic for me, please.
I didn't hear what you said.
Say it again, please.
We picked that up from the county a few years ago. How many has it been? 3 years now?
Yes. Well, it was BFC before Freddie Curtis, so y'all already had that when I came.
And
Are you talking about the LEAPS grant?
yeah, so that doesn't cover everything, does it?
No.
No, it doesn't. And I think you guys are putting in $20,000, but that's part of that's my salary. Is that correct, Douglas?
Yes, I think maybe a little more than that, because there's some things that are purchased that they don't allow. So when that happens, then you have to pick it up on that side of it. We have never been able to collect the full amount of the grant.
Nope.
Because we don't have enough in allowable expenses. And as Lisa can tell you, buying a toothpick is like pulling a tooth from that grant.
They are so strict with everything that we do. Of course, I know that Audrey has that same problem as well as Kathy. Anytime you get those grants, it's awful.
But your 21st century, of course, that's under federal.
It does a little better.
Yeah, I think it's kind of self-supporting. But your after-school program is costing you money.
Do you know exactly how much, Douglas?
No, I could go back and tell you what it was last year, and then for the whole year, and then I could tell you what it is this year. Of course, it's going to be different this year because the people are not working, so you're not paying those part-time people.
Right. But I think the cost is not really always the personnel and the salaries. It's more of just anything that we buy for that program.
That's true. And like last year, or well, the beginning of this year, I think they required all the personnel to go to or all the site coordinators to go to a conference. And it wasn't a conference in Nashville, it was up in Indiana somewhere. And that was pretty expensive.
But did they pay for all of that?
Yes, they did, finally.
Okay.
They're very, very slow about paying.
Well, is that something that we need to talk to the legislature about, that to get them off their hunchers and get Don shoveling a little bit more?
I don't know. It's Don.
I don't care. Y'all know me. I don't care. I don't care to.
I try to stay in his good graces.
So basically, what do they help pay for? Some of the salary and feeding them?
They pay for the salary. Jennifer covers our food. It's just any supplies that we buy. So anything that we do which we have to meet certain requirements to do it, to keep the grant, sometimes they'll pay for it and sometimes they won't. And sometimes they'll take them 3 or 4 months to pay for it.
And like
Douglas and I both have to jump through.
Like a field trip you take.
Yep.
They may or may not like the field trip.
May or may not. And I try to get things approved before we go do anything to try to make sure that they're going to cover what they're doing. But then they'll want the lesson plan or what craft we did, or it's just it's a lot of work.
So Douglas's recommendation would be to remove that totally.
Douglas does not like the grant at all.
He does not.
No, he doesn't. But I think it does benefit a lot of our families, and so.
So it's not just the summer program, it's your after-school program as well.
Yes. It's not really the summer program at all. It is the after-school program.
Okay. So do you think maybe we could talk with Aletha on some of the supplies that you might need, and she could help out with that? I mean, with the We Care.
It's usually like a science project or something that we're having to buy like supplies for, not just paper and pencil. And we can get a lot of that donated, but.
Is it stuff that teachers have assigned though for kids to do?
Some of it is, some of it's their schoolwork, and some of it's just, we have to do STEM projects in there. So we have to purchase those things. And they want us to use our partners to help cover that. Which we try to do, but
we're limited in our partners though.
Yeah. But part of our partners have been shut down, and But like Douglas said, we've never gotten every penny that they've given us.
Understood, and that's a problem, because if they don't cover it, GP has to.
Right.
So can y'all get us a figure on that? But then again, let's just say you're not going to do anything that's not on the list. You don't know what they're really going to approve or not going to approve.
Right.
So
Well, we definitely know they will not cover Cokes or candy. Absolutely will not.
All right, so don't be purchasing Cokes and candy. I can remedy that real quick. Milk and popcorn. Jennifer will like that.
Peanut butter and crackers.
Peanut butter and crackers. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna have to find a few more peanut butter and crackers to get to, what is it, $800,000, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I wish that grant was all of our problem.
Okay.
That would be easy.
All right. We'll go right to Marcia. Dr. Melton. Sorry to get in, but when Douglas chimed in, we had to go down that direction. So go ahead, Marcia.
So the only really pockets of money that I have are textbooks. I've already told you what's happening in textbooks with our ELA adoption this year and the needs with that. You know, we could save on that. We did write a waiver. We could go back to using what we've, limped along for this year while we had this gap year in between two adoption years. But, then what do we do next year? And then what do we do the next year while we add other adoptions onto it?
Kids get further behind, and they get behind in the curriculum, and that's not good.
Exactly. And then the other thing is personnel in my department. Of course, I've had this position for 19 years. The BEP funding formula says a district our size should have 3 instructional supervisors. There's never been but 1 instructional supervisor, even though Audrey, and Kathy and Bonnie, because we're a small district, they've got little bits and pieces of that, but their funding comes from something other than, the BEP under supervisors. And of course, once again, that's just a funding formula. So having 2 instructional coaches, and especially with a new curriculum this year in ELA, these ladies have been, I don't even know, I tell them all the time how great they have been in, being the support for the teachers. I wished we had a test and data this year, because I would have loved to have seen some of the growth in some of the areas that they have poured their hearts out into in supporting teachers. And then we've been telling teachers, oh, the nice thing about this adoption is you're going to have support. You're going to have the coaches there to help you. They're already working on setting up professional development for next year. And Mr. Curtis knows I've got to have surgery here in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to be off my foot for about 6 weeks. Now I can do some of that from home, work from home when I can, but I can't be lifting boxes and taking them out to schools and things like that. So, at a time when I really need the help, but I understand that you've got hard decisions. I really do. But that's basically the only places I can. What was that, Javen? I'm sorry.
Not a good position to be in. You're dealing with, my biggest fear with this is you've got all these people and you've got qualified people, and when you let them go, they're going to go somewhere else and find a job. They're not coming back.
That's right, because they're going to get scared to come back.
Nah, they're not coming back.
I'm just looking at the BEP, so those that are listening or who will listen to this.
I've got a copy of it. I'm going to email it to you.
I've got the April estimate, Marcia. I will just, the board members have a copy of the April estimate. And the April estimate is this. I mean, on the supervisors 3.0, that's correct. But you know how much they would give us on it says special ed right under system-wide instructions 3. Special ed, you know how much that they would say? Audrey, you'll love this. 0.46. Do you do 0.46 work, Miss James? Please answer the question.
I might ought to stay muted. I might say something I shouldn't.
Be nice, Audrey.
I understand, Miss James. You're a good Baptist, though. So I'm just saying 0.46 It's what the state in their infinite wisdom says in a system our size we get for a special ed supervisor. And Mr. Nichols is gone, but I will inform you of this. And this is what some people say that we should do. We should be following this, and not ask the county government for nothing. And you know they'll argue that point, but that's what I've been told multiple times over there. Y'all ain't going by this. That's what I've been told by the southern end of the table. Career technical, Miss Crystal. 0.11, a tenth of a CTE director.
And then what does it say for principals? That's where, you know, that's the unfortunate.
That's where I'm heading.
Because that's, you know, we can't have no principals.
Miss Audrey, this is where
English.
This is where I'll nearly cuss, Audrey. It says special ed, SP period, ED period, and then ASS. I didn't know y'all might have I don't know. ASSESS. Maybe that's a special ed assessments or something. Or it could be. I could be considered that.
Assessments or assistants, one of the two probably.
All right, 0.57. Half of one, basically, half time. That's what. That's what. Now principals. Let's go to principals. Principals in the BEP, see the blue book, and we can discuss the blue book later. That's not the blue book at the state, it's the blue book the comptroller has on BEP. Principals. Now, how many schools do we have? Anybody want to take a guess? Okay, 7. Thank you, Lisa. She just put them up there in her hands. We have 7 schools, correct, Mr. Chairman? You know how many principals BEP says? 5.50. 5.5. So that means that we have to fund locally, we have to fund a principal and a half. That's what we have to fund. Assistant principals, elementary. Miss Emily, you might want to unmute on this one. Elementary, K8, see blue book, 0.00. And secondary, 912. 0.50, a half. Mr. Nichols needs 2 over there desperately. And here you got a half of a position. So, you know, there are some other things. Social worker, Miss Bonnie does the work of a social worker. It says we can do 1 per county. We've never had a social worker. I've been in the system 34 years. We've never had a social worker. And a psychologist 1.0. And for the whole county, yes, sir. So there you go. That's just a.
What did it say on the nurses?
Okay, RTI 1 position, 1.0. School counselors. How many counselors? Miss Bonnie's not with us tonight. She had some other things going. But we've got, when you consider how many counselors we've got, it says 2.02 at K through 6. 7 and 12 plus vocational, 2.40 school counselors. So we do have 2 school counselors at the high school, but part of that should be shared out with 7 to 12. K6, we have 2.02, and we actually have what? Help me out here, 3 counselors that we have. So anything that the difference there, we have to fund. So hey, we can have an ESL translator. We can have 0.009 of a translator in our county. Audrey, can we spend 0.09? That's not even a tenth of a translator. How do we do that?
When I do need one and pay for one, I usually pay for it out of the IDEA funds. So.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you what it says here.
Right.
9,000.
Well, 9 tenths. Well, yeah, 9 tenths. Yes. 0.09. Not even a tenth.
0.09.
Yeah.
900.
900. Well, that's what I'm saying. 900ths of a.
I thought you said 0.0.
Well, we nearly got to tenths, which would have been 100, Mr. Chairman. I know my fraction. I taught it for a little while. Know my decimal points. Okay. Art, 1.92. Music, K6, that's art K6, music K6, 1.92. And what we've done with that, and Marcia can help me out here, what we've done there, we have put all the baskets into visual arts instead of music. And Mr. Guffey would love to have 2 other music aficionados around here, but then again, you know, you've only got let me go back to where my line is, 1.92, so you're 8/10 there away from
Well,
right,
we only have one music teacher, right?
correct, yes, sir, in the whole county.
We had 2, but we
Yeah.
we never hired them back.
Never hired them back, and we never had that position back. Marcia, you want to speak on the visual arts deal for a second? If the board considers cutting visual arts.
Well, it's a requirement for the high school to have one of those fine art credits for graduation and for admittance into colleges. So I know Courtney had to go, and he could probably speak to that more than I can. But at the elementary level, once again, as Mr. Curtis said, we have chosen to go the art route. I guess at the time those decisions were being made, we had more ability, and we wanted to be equitable among all the schools by providing, art rather than trying to mix and match with that too. So trying to get the time in. I think at the very beginning of the specials teachers, I guess that's what most of the schools call them, is, it's also a way to offer teachers or give teachers, especially at the K-8 schools, they don't have the built-in planning time that the high school does with the way the periods are done. So I think, let's see, I think Angela left us. Emily's still with us, so she'd probably speak to this more than I can. But, the vision of our county was that, if we have librarians, if we have art teachers and PE teachers, and eventually if we had music teachers, and students could have one of those specialty classes every day. That way it would give teachers during the instructional day or a part of the instructional day to have some planning time too. So now, if they don't have a specials class on that day, some counselors have classes too. The teachers don't have a planning time except 15 minutes before school and after school.
It does say on librarians, K-8, 4.00, and then on librarians, and then 9 to 12, 1.0.
And only only the W schools have a full-time librarian. The other 3 schools have part-time library assistants, but bless their hearts, I just met with one this week, and part of their responsibilities, and they asked to do this. If you want people that can organize things well, that's going to be your librarians, and they're the ones that inventory the textbooks when they come in. So when we get new textbooks in, it's their job to go through, inventory them. Mr. Kofer found a great program a few years back that mirrored what the librarians already do with their library books to keep an inventory. So we have codes and we keep them inventoried, and that's helped save us a lot of money because we can track where the textbooks are going to. So that's what librarians do, even above and beyond being librarians and having classes and keeping their own inventory up.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Nurses, you asked, Mr. Chairman, you asked about that. It's got 1872, which that's the April estimate, which will be, we think, 1922, divided by 3,000. Equals minimum 1 per system. Guess how many we get? 1 per system. We've got 1 RN, and then we've got the rest of it, our LPNs or 2 LPNs are done. And Bonnie, of course, said that we have to make that other one a part-time position. She wouldn't like it, but we have to. All
right, let's hear from Kathy.
Ms. Mullins, come on down.
Hello again. All right, so Douglas has kind of spoke to us, my 2 programs being federal and pre-K, voluntary pre-K. Voluntary pre-K is a annual grant we apply for. We are giving a set amount of money to be zeroed out June 30th of each year. So one consideration, and Ms. James kind of spoke to it, is we do in both of our programs align with whatever teacher salary is, along with EA, educational assistant salaries are. So that being said, if one is given a raise, and that is of course comes from the budget that I plan each year. So, I mean, that's just a note to be considered whenever we are making plans. Federal, again, we are just given, Mr. Curtis has been fabulous, encouraging everyone filling out their census, because so much of our federal dollars is based on the census. So again, it's given a set amount of money, and then we are budgeting how we are utilizing those funds. Obviously, a majority of those, as you know, looking through this budget, is through teacher salary and benefits. I mean, medical insurance and that sort of thing. But again, mine is set. I'm just kind of filling in the blanks each year. But if you have any questions for me, please let me know.
But we're fine. You're finite, and you're like Audrey is on that, Kathy, aren't you? I mean, if we go up on salary, even on the steps, that means you got to take out from another line item.
Correct. That is exactly right. Correct.
I'm glad that I watched my mouth a while ago, because as I was sitting here thinking, you said the BEP that you receive for a SPED person is 0.46, and you pay 0.50, so it's not far off from what you pay.
Yeah, I got you. And then special ed assistants, it's got here special ed assistants, I think, on here. Or no, it's just assistants, which we do 13.47. Special ed, 32 divided by 60, 0.54 on special education assistants. Options 5, 7, and 8.
That doesn't make sense.
That is sad right there. 0.54.
That's state funding, though, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's state.
But most of hers is done through federal.
Most of yours is done through federal, correct, Audrey?
Yes, as far as the assistants go, now some of them are on the GP fund. But every year when we increase salaries, I have to take an assistant and move it over to the federal, and I'm hoping that's not going to get us in trouble for supplanting instead of supplementing, but I don't think unless it's grant. They've not said anything before. I've always had to put it on the application. They've always approved it, so.
All right, that's good. Okay, Kathy, anything else? Ms. Mullins, anything else from you in regard to federal or pre-K?
No, I mean, right now we have, our title teachers and our pre-K teachers, and of course we have assistants for each pre-K classroom. That will stay the same. It is a requirement. I mean, currently, and it's not out of my federal or pre-K budget, but of course we have an RTI coach that has made great strides in this past year and a half. So, I mean, I do want to keep that role in the budget as well. It's just something to look at.
Okay. All right. The other thing about this budget, I mean, the BEP certainly has to do with all other classroom allocations, and there's a certain amount of funding that you get for at-risk and substitute teachers and alternative school, et cetera, et cetera. So, you're getting some funding from each one of those categories. Not a lot, but you are, you're getting certain amount of classroom materials and supplies. You're getting a formula based on that, and instructional equipment. And, time the bottom line comes up, it says the county has to come up with other allocations in their part, as well as what the state has to do. And each one
I
is
will
that
say, in this new age of virtual meetings, I think, if we continue the route that we're on, and so many meetings are being canceled or either handled this way, that, even our travel lines for the principals and supervisors, even though that probably doesn't impact your budget with Audrey and Kathy because theirs all come from grants and things like that. But for me and the principals or even the coaches to attend, the big state trainings and whatever, I just don't think those are probably going to happen anyway. So those could be some, and Douglas and I sort of talked about that. Some of that travel stuff could be.
And everybody has agreed that nobody's going to lead this time, if there is a lead. If there is a lead, that's that big.
Or the old Fall Creek Falls, even the State Department is rolling out all the tassel credit for principals and supervisors. It's all going to be online, where we used to have to, send people to things, pay a registration and maybe a, travel for those things. So that's going to look differently this time. So
I'm thinking as we look towards the new year, and I may be way off, this is just me thinking it's late, it's been a long day, but the CARES Act money that we may be getting, we may have to have parts of it to figure out how we're going to continue educating our students, because we may have to put it into use.
Well, if only 33% of Woodbury Grammar has internet, that means 67% is going to need to be provided some sort of internet at that one school alone. And CARES Act can be a part of that, but the problem is the dogged hotspots, or whatever you want to call them, are very expensive. Even though they say you're getting a cheap rate. Or Brian, you want to speak on that a little bit? I mean, Verizon probably has one of the best coverages around, and their hotspots are quite a bit, aren't you, Brian?
Well, it's just money that'll be temporary, that we won't have anything to show for it after it's spent. I think that money would be better spent on extending a wireless campus, maybe get coverage in our parking lots, start by mounting access points on the corners of the buildings, and then depending on what money's available, branch out to poles to get the full campus coverage. And beyond that would be select points in the community where there's ample parking space available.
And I think that's what other school districts are considering. When I've listened in, when we had our Upper Cumberland Supervisor Study Council meeting, when we're thinking about providing internet, exactly what Brian was talking about. You don't want to invest in individual contracts with families, and that's a short-term thing. But if you expand, the Wi-Fi capabilities and have, learning drive-in spots that parents could use, that's what they're doing. Some schools, I think, we're doing even some outdoor learning spots by having those extend to, the areas, the grassy areas where they could have a car pull in and still isolate families and work outside on pretty days.
And, some systems are utilizing their school buses and parking their school buses in strategic locations that have Wi-Fi on them. But there again, that's where you risk the buses being vandalized if they're not near somebody's house, or something like that, where somebody can keep a watch on them. That's where vandalization can and will occur on some of them. That's talked to me about that. And some pretty rugged. You think of Tennessee, that some of those guys we've discussed, and Mr. Cofer could tell you even more about it with some of his fellow technology directors. It's pretty tough. So CARES Act, that's to be determined, and we'll see what we have to do there, what we can and what we can't do. Mr. Chairman, I think I've gone pretty well over the BEP. Part of this, it gets, we talk about school secretaries and bookkeepers and those kind of things that have been added, to the BEP in recent years. To do that, custodians, it's based on square footage of your buildings to determine how many custodians. 9.35 is how many custodians that in lots.
Have 3 at the high school. and one at each grammar school.
correct? Really two. We got part-timers at each school. We got 2 full-time at Woodbury Grammar, correct, Emily?
Yes, I'm not sure exactly how those are funded. I don't know if one's funded as a receptionist and one is a secretary.
Okay, then you got, I'm sorry, we're talking about janitors. You got 2
Sorry, I
full-time.
have 2 of those. I have 2 janitors, yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And 2 at the high school, 2 at the high school, and pretty well 1 in all the others from there on. Someone's got part-timers, some part-timers too. So there is some funding in there for custodians.
All right, I noticed Douglas dozing off.
Douglas, you dozing?
I'm about ready to doze
Me
off.
too,
So
me too. I'm about talked out here.
thanks everybody for showing up. Thank you for your attentiveness. Thank you for your input. We got some major stuff to consider. I wished everybody on the board had been here, but they're not. So we got to vote on something tomorrow night.
Lisa, we didn't really talk, Mr. Chairman, if I can, before we dismiss. Lisa, we didn't really talk transportation. That was on the last page of the BEP.
You don't have to. You can
That
go.
would solve all of our problems, Lisa.
Yep, that's me.
Call her the problem solver, just dissolve transportation.
Dissolve transportation. I mean, I know y'all have got a lot of hard decisions to make, and I've presented what I think we can do in transportation to cut our 25%. Unfortunately, you've just got 2 people there tonight, and that's not quite fair to them, but.
Well, Lisa, what would you think about on your cuts on transportation? Are you looking, you could cut a bus, but that's gonna bite you, in the backside next year.
Right. Well, if we get 2, if they'll give us 2 this year, I think we can push ahead. We're about through this 2004 thing, so where they bought 4, so close to being through that little hurdle. And once we get through that, we should be in pretty good shape. I mean, we got to do what we got to do. And if I was making these cuts to my own budget, I wouldn't buy a new car. So that's kind of how I try to look at it. I wouldn't give myself a raise, and I wouldn't buy a new car.
But you do have a car, though.
Right.
You do have a car.
Have buses. I do have buses, and next year or the next year may get better. And I think we just got to, I think that's how it's got to be across the whole board. Everybody's got to think about what is the most important things to them. Like Emily said, her vice principal is her most important thing. I think that's what we've all got to think about.
I think Javen said that well at the beginning, thinking about keeping, our positions. I would rather give up some of the other things, and Mr. Curtis and I have even talked a couple of those ways that we could, the savings there, whether or not we can just come up with enough to get through this year and see where that gets us before we have to start, teachers and our personnel staff, they may be the only people that have jobs in their family right now.
Right.
That's true.
I think a lot of people would be okay with not getting a raise and keeping their job.
Okay, Jennifer, before we close, I'd like to hear your thoughts on food service. Chairman wants to leave. I'm trying to get everybody fair to everybody. So I think you'd already talked about food service being separate, but you might want to talk about your projected budget.
Well, I'll be brief. My goal for our budget for the next school year is to be sufficient, and I'm hoping that we can do that. And we've had a good COVID-19 feeding with great success, and so that's my goal. And I've got that's all I have.
Jennifer, we got some long words right there. I don't know if you, I don't call it slurring your words, but.
Oh. Can you hear me?
I can do that. It's still doing it though, but no real change is what we got. Is that correct?
Yes. It's really
think-
hard out here on Lock Creek for internet.
That's
Brian
what I
needs to
was
help
gonna
us
say.
out.
It's the Locks Creek phenomenon out there.
Back in the holler, it's hard. But our goal for food service is to be self-sufficient, and that should alleviate funds for GP. So
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot, Jennifer, but you think you're gonna have $35,000 out of GP that the board appropriated for you last year. Do you think you're gonna have that this year?
no, sir.
Okay, that's good news. Thank you. And all because you didn't do the raises. That's the only reason that happened, is you didn't do the hourly raises. You did a percent raise.
And two, helping with not having the salary with the bookkeeper that we're splitting, and having such great participation through COVID-19 has been great for our program.
So, and then that's where she said part of the GP is paying Teresa's salary instead of a full salary out of food service. I've utilized Teresa as the bookkeeper. As the receptionist, as well as the food service bookkeeper. But that'll be leaving once. Probably we figured in September when they depart for the upstairs.
Sorry, our internet is not good out here, and you weren't able to hear me. I apologize.
It's okay. All right, guys. I'm calling it quits. Y'all can keep chatting if you want to. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Javen.
Thank y'all. Oh, man.